Hello, my friend. I'm Evelyn, and I'm truly happy you're here today. Before we begin, I want to ask you one simple question. When you have a real conversation in English, how confident do you actually feel? Think about that for a moment. Maybe you have been learning English for 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, or even longer. During that time, you may have studied grammar, learned hundreds or even thousands of words, watched English lessons, listened to podcasts, read articles, practiced pronunciation, and told yourself again and again, "One day, I will speak English fluently." And maybe your English really has improved. You can understand much more than before. You can read messages, follow videos, understand conversations, and recognize many expressions. But there may still be one difficult moment, the moment when someone looks at you and waits for you to answer. Suddenly, everything becomes harder. You know the idea you want to express, but you cannot find the words quickly enough. You start translating from your first language. You wonder which grammar tense you should use. You worry that your pronunciation sounds strange. You begin building a perfect sentence inside your head. And while you are still thinking, the conversation continues without you. If that experience sounds familiar, today's masterclass is for you. Because real fluency is not about speaking perfect English, and it is certainly not about knowing every English word. Fluency means being able to communicate your ideas naturally enough to keep a conversation moving. It means responding without spending too much time translating. It means explaining yourself even when you cannot remember the perfect word. It means making a small mistake and continuing to speak instead of freezing. That is what we are going to train today, and I want you to do something very important during this lesson. Then do not listen to me like you are watching an ordinary English lesson. I want you to participate. Whenever I give you a sentence, say it with me. Whenever I ask you a question, answer it out loud. Whenever I give you a situation, imagine that you are really there. Your English will not become fluent simply because your ears hear more English. Your English becomes fluent when your brain learns to produce English. So today, we are going to practice the English you actually need in real life. We are going to work with conversations about meeting people, making plans, talking at work, asking for help, expressing opinions, dealing with small problems, continuing conversations, and responding naturally when you do not know exactly what to say. And throughout this masterclass, I am also going to show you something that many learners overlook. Fluent speakers do not always create beautiful, complicated sentences. In fact, everyday English is often built from simple language used quickly, naturally, and confidently. For example, imagine someone asks you, "How was your weekend?" You do not need to create an impressive answer. You could simply say, "It was pretty good. I mostly relaxed at home, but I went out with some friends on Saturday." Listen again. "It was pretty good. I mostly relaxed at home, but I went out with some friends on Saturday." Now say it with me. "It was pretty good. I mostly relaxed at home, but I went out with some friends on Saturday." Good. Notice what happened there. The grammar was not difficult. The vocabulary was not advanced. But the answer sounded natural because it gave enough information for the conversation to continue. Now imagine you answer only, "Good." The answer is grammatically correct, but it gives the other person almost nothing to work with. This is one of the first secrets of confident conversation. Do not only answer the question, add one small piece of information. If someone asks, "Do you like cooking?" you could say, "Yes, I do." That is correct. But a stronger conversational answer would be, yes, I do, especially on weekends. I usually make something simple like pasta or chicken. Say that aloud. Yes, I do. Especially on weekends, I usually make something simple like pasta or chicken. Now imagine someone asks, "Where do you live?" Instead of only saying the name of your city, you could say, "I live in a fairly busy city, but my neighborhood is actually pretty quiet." Again, I live in a fairly busy city, but my neighborhood is actually pretty quiet. This simple habit, answer plus one extra detail, can immediately make you sound more comfortable in conversation. And now I want you to practice it. I will ask you a question, and I want you to answer out loud. Your answer does not need to be perfect. Give me a simple answer, and then add one more detail. Here is your first question. What do you usually do after work or after studying? Answer now. Good. Maybe you said, "I usually go home and relax. Then I have dinner and watch something online." Or perhaps, "I usually go for a walk after work because it helps me clear my mind." Both are excellent conversational answers. Here is another question. What kind of music do you enjoy listening to? Answer out loud. You might say, "I listen to different kinds of music, but I probably listen to pop the most." Or, "I really enjoy calm music, especially when I'm working or studying." Notice something important. You do not need advanced vocabulary to sound fluent. You need usable language, and you need enough confidence to keep using it. Now let's talk about another problem that stops many intermediate learners from speaking naturally, trying to create perfect sentences before opening their mouth. Maybe someone asks you, "What do you think about working from home?" And immediately your brain starts working too hard. Should I say, "In my opinion"? Should I use "although"? Should I say, "on the other hand"? Is this sentence grammatically correct? And because you are trying to build the perfect answer, you become silent. Instead, begin with something easy. You can say, "I think it has some advantages." That gives you time. Then continue. For example, "You don't have to spend time commuting." Then add another thought. "But sometimes it can feel a little lonely." Now you have produced a natural answer. I think it has some advantages. For example, "You don't have to spend time commuting, but sometimes it can feel a little lonely." Say it with me slowly. I think it has some advantages. For example, "You don't have to spend time commuting, but sometimes it can feel a little lonely." This is how real conversation develops, one idea at a time. You do not need to know the entire sentence before you begin speaking. Remember that. You can begin with, "I think." You can begin with, "For me." You can begin with, "It depends." You can begin with, "Actually." You can begin with, "To be honest." These short expressions give your brain a moment to organize the next idea while keeping the conversation alive. Let's practice. I will give you a question. Start your answer with, "I think." Do you think people spend too much time on their phones? Speak now. You might say, "I think many people probably do, because we use our phones for almost everything now." Excellent. Now start with, "It depends. Is it better to live in a big city or a small town?" Answer. Maybe you said, "It depends on your lifestyle." A big city can be more exciting, but a small town can be more peaceful. Very good. Now use, "To be honest." Do you enjoy waking up early? Answer. You could say, "To be honest, not really. I can wake up early when I need to, but I definitely prefer sleeping a little longer." That sounds natural, relaxed, and conversational. And this is exactly what I want you to understand today. Confidence grows when you stop treating every sentence like a test. A real conversation is not an English exam. The person speaking with you is usually not analyzing your grammar. They are listening for your meaning. So instead of asking yourself, "Is my English perfect?" start asking, "Can the other person understand what I mean?" That small change can completely transform the way you speak. Imagine you are ordering food at a restaurant, and you want to know whether a dish is spicy. You do not need a complicated sentence. You can simply ask, "Is this very spicy?" Or, "How spicy is this?" Or, "Could I get it less spicy?" Listen and repeat. "Is this very spicy?" "How spicy is this?" "Could I get it less spicy?" Now imagine you are at work, and you did not understand an instruction. Instead of pretending that you understood, you can say, "Sorry, could you explain that one more time?" Repeat, "Sorry, could you explain that one more time?" Or you can say, "Just to make sure I understand, you want me to finish this by Friday, right?" Repeat, "Just to make sure I understand, you want me to finish this by Friday, right?" That expression, "just to make sure I understand," is extremely useful because confident communication does not mean understanding everything immediately. Confident communication also means knowing how to ask when something is unclear. And that brings us to an important idea. When you learn English for real conversations, you should not only practice perfect situations. You should practice what to say when conversations become difficult. What do you say when you do not understand? What do you say when you forget a word? What do you say when you need more time to think? What do you say when you disagree politely? What do you say when you want the other person to explain something again? These moments are not failures. These moments are part of communication. So from this moment forward, I want you to stop thinking that fluent speakers always know exactly what to say. They do not. Good speakers simply know how to keep communicating even when the perfect words do not immediately come. And that is exactly what we are going to practice together. One real-life situation, one useful expression, and one confident answer at a time. One of the biggest differences between knowing English and speaking English confidently is how quickly you can turn an idea into a sentence. And the good news is that this skill can be trained. You do not have to wait until you know more grammar. And you do not have to memorize thousands of new words before you begin. What you need is regular practice using the English that is already inside your mind. Think about your first language for a moment. When someone asks you a simple question, you probably do not stop and think about every grammar rule. You simply understand the meaning, choose the words, and respond. Our goal is to help your English move a little closer to that natural process. A very useful way to do this is to practice short conversational patterns instead of trying to memorize long, perfect answers. For example, imagine someone asks you, "How have you been lately?" You could answer, "I've been pretty good, just a little busy with work." Listen to that again. "I've been pretty good, just a little busy with work." Now say it aloud. "I've been pretty good, just a little busy with work." This answer is simple, but it sounds natural because it combines a general answer with one extra detail. Someone might then ask, "What have you been busy with?" You could continue, "Mostly work. We've had a few important projects recently, so my days have been quite full." Again, notice that you are not trying to impress anyone with difficult vocabulary. You are simply developing the conversation one sentence at a time. Repeat slowly. Mostly work. We've had a few important projects recently, so my days have been quite full. Now imagine a different situation. You meet someone at a social event, and they ask, "So, what do you do?" Sometimes English learners become nervous when they hear questions like this because they start searching for the perfect professional description. But your answer can be much easier. You can say, "I work in marketing. I mainly help with online campaigns and social media." Or, "I'm currently studying business, and I'm hoping to work in finance in the future." Or perhaps, "I work for a small company, and I mostly deal with customers." These are natural B1 to B2 answers because they are clear, useful, and easy for another person to respond to. Let's practice that now. Imagine I have just met you, and I ask, "What do you do?" Answer me out loud. Do not prepare a long speech. Just give me one clear sentence, and then add one extra detail. Speak now. Good. Now imagine I ask, "Do you enjoy it?" Answer naturally. Maybe you said, "Yes." For the most part, it can be stressful sometimes, but I like the people I work with. That expression, "for the most part," is very useful when something is generally true, but not true all the time. Repeat, "for the most part." Now the complete answer. Yes, for the most part. It can be stressful sometimes, but I like the people I work with. Another important fluency skill is learning how to keep speaking when you cannot remember a specific word. Many learners stop completely because one word disappears from their mind. But real communication does not require you to know every word. You can describe the thing instead. Imagine you forget the word charger. You could say, "You know, the thing I use to charge my phone." The other person will probably understand immediately. If you forget the word receipt, you might say, "the small piece of paper they give you after you pay." If you forget the word umbrella, you could say, "the thing you use when it rains." This skill is called paraphrasing. But you do not need to remember that term. Just remember the idea. If you forget one word, do not stop the conversation. Explain the meaning with words you already know. Let's practice. Imagine you forget the word headphones. How could you describe them? You could say, "the things you put over or in your ears to listen to music." Say that aloud. The things you put over or in your ears to listen to music. Now imagine you forget the word appointment. You could say, "a time that I arranged to meet someone, like a doctor or a dentist." Repeat. "A time that I arranged to meet someone, like a doctor or a dentist." This is powerful because it teaches your brain an important lesson. Forgetting one word does not mean the conversation has to end. Another useful skill is learning how to react naturally while someone else is speaking. Conversation is not only about answering questions. You also need small reactions that show you are listening. If someone says, "I finally finished that big project yesterday," you might respond, "Oh, that's great." If someone says, "I had to work until midnight," you might say, "Wow, that sounds exhausting." If someone tells you, "I'm traveling to New York next month," you could say, "Really? That sounds exciting." These reactions may look small, but they make your English sound much more natural. Practice these with me. "Really? That's great." "That sounds interesting." "No way." "I see." "That makes sense." "That sounds difficult." "I'm glad to hear that." Now let's put this into a mini conversation. Imagine someone says, "I started a new job last week." You can respond, "Really? How's it going so far?" Listen again. "Really? How's it going so far?" Now say it aloud. The person answers, "It's going well, but there's a lot to learn." You can say, "I can imagine. Starting a new job can be a little overwhelming." Repeat. I can imagine. Starting a new job can be a little overwhelming. Then you can continue with a question. What do you like about it so far? Notice the pattern here. You reacted, you added a short comment, and then you asked a follow-up question. That is one of the easiest ways to keep a conversation moving. Let's train that pattern. I will give you a statement, and you respond with a reaction, one comment, and one question. Here is the first statement. I moved to a new apartment last weekend. Think for a moment. You might say, "Oh, nice. Moving can be tiring. Do you like your new place?" That is an excellent response. Now try another one. I've started going to the gym before work. You could respond, "Really? That takes discipline. How often do you go?" Very good. Now try this. I'm thinking about taking an English course next month. Maybe you said, "That sounds like a good idea. It could really help." What kind of course are you thinking about taking? This kind of practice is much more valuable than memorizing isolated vocabulary because it trains you to respond to meaning, and that is what happens in real conversations. You hear an idea, you react, and you build your next sentence from that idea. You should also become comfortable using simple phrases when you need a little time to think. Silence can make you nervous, but natural speakers often use short expressions while organizing their thoughts. You can say, "Let me think," or "That's a good question," or "I've never really thought about that," or, "Well, I'd probably say," imagine someone asks you, "What is the best decision you have made in the last few years?" Maybe you need time. Instead of freezing, say, "That's a good question. Let me think." I'd probably say, "Learning to manage my time better." Now your hesitation sounds natural because you are still communicating while you think. Say it with me. That's a good question. Let me think. Again, that's a good question. Let me think. Now, I've never really thought about that, but I'd probably say, repeat slowly. I've never really thought about that, but I'd probably say. These expressions are not meaningless fillers. They are conversational tools. They give your brain a few extra seconds. And sometimes those few seconds are exactly what you need to find your next sentence. Now I want you to practice with a more personal question. What is one thing you would like to improve about your daily routine? Do not rush. Start with, "Let me think." Then continue with your answer. Perhaps you said, "Let me think. I'd like to start exercising more regularly because I spend too much time sitting during the day." That is a complete, natural answer. It has a clear idea, a reason, and enough detail to create another conversation. And this is the pattern I want you to remember as we continue. Speak simply, add a little detail, react to what you hear, ask follow-up questions, and keep going even if every sentence is not perfect. Fluency is not built by waiting for mistakes to disappear. Fluency is built by learning how to communicate even while mistakes are still part of the process. Now let's move into another skill that can make your real-life English much stronger: expressing your opinion without sounding too direct. At the B1 to B2 level, you already know how to say, "I think." But in real conversations, it is useful to have several ways to express what you believe. You can say, "Personally, I think," or "From my point of view," or "The way I see it," or simply, "For me." These expressions help your speech sound more flexible and natural. Imagine you are talking with a friend about working from home. You might say, "Personally, I think working from home can be very convenient, especially if you have a long commute." Then your friend says, "I prefer working in an office." You do not have to agree. You could respond, "I understand what you mean, but for me, it's easier to concentrate at home. Listen to that again. I understand what you mean, but for me, it's easier to concentrate at home. This is a very useful pattern when you disagree politely. First, show that you understand the other person. Then give your own opinion. You can say, I see your point, but I think, or that's true, although I feel, or I understand what you mean, but I see it a little differently. Repeat slowly. I see your point, but I think. Again, I understand what you mean, but I see it a little differently. Now let's practice. Imagine someone says, people should never use their phones during dinner. You have a different opinion. Start with, I see your point, but, and complete the sentence out loud. Maybe you said, I see your point, but sometimes people need to check an important message. Good. You express disagreement without making the conversation uncomfortable. Here is another one. Living in a big city is always better than living in a small town. Respond politely. You could say, I understand what you mean, but I think it really depends on the person. Excellent. That phrase, it depends on the person, is extremely useful because many real-life questions do not have one simple answer. You can also say, it depends on the situation. It depends on what you're looking for, or it depends on your priorities. Repeat those. It depends on the situation. It depends on what you're looking for. It depends on your priorities. Now imagine you are making plans with a friend. Your friend asks, do you want to go out for dinner tonight? You want to go, but you are not completely sure about your schedule. Instead of saying only, maybe, you can say, I'd like to, but I need to finish some work first. Or, that sounds good. Let me check what time I'll be free. These answers sound more natural because they explain your situation. Suppose you cannot go. You can say, I'd love to, but I already have plans tonight. Repeat. I'd love to, but I already have plans tonight. Another useful response is, I can't tonight, but how about tomorrow? Repeat. I can't tonight, but how about tomorrow? Notice that you are not only saying no, you are helping the conversation move forward. This skill is useful in many situations. If a coworker asks, can you help me with this right now? And you are busy, you might say, I can help you. But could we do it in about 20 minutes? If someone invites you somewhere and you are unsure, you could say, that sounds interesting. Let me see if I'm free. If you want to suggest another option, you can say, how about we meet a little later? Or, would tomorrow work better? Let's practice a real-life situation. Imagine your friend says, let's meet for coffee at 3, but 3 o'clock is not convenient for you. Respond naturally. You might say, 3 might be a little difficult for me. Would 4 work instead? Excellent. Say it again. 3 might be a little difficult for me. Would 4 work instead? Now imagine a coworker says, can we talk about the project after lunch? You are available. Respond naturally. You could say, sure, that works for me. Repeat, sure, that works for me. You could also say, absolutely, just let me know when you're ready. Another important part of fluency is knowing how to handle small problems calmly. Real-life conversations are not always comfortable or predictable. Maybe your order is wrong. Maybe you cannot find something. Maybe you miss a train. Or maybe you need someone to correct a mistake. These situations are excellent speaking practice because they teach you to communicate clearly under a little pressure. Imagine you are in a cafe. You ordered a hot coffee, but the server brings you an iced coffee. You do not need a complicated explanation. You can simply say, excuse me, I think there may have been a small mix-up. I ordered a hot coffee. Listen again. Excuse me, I think there may have been a small mix-up. I ordered a hot coffee. That expression, there may have been a small mix-up, is polite and useful when something has gone wrong. You can also say, sorry, I think I received the wrong order. Repeat, sorry, I think I received the wrong order. Now imagine you are in a store and the price on your receipt is different from the price you saw on the shelf. You could say, excuse me, I think I may have been charged the wrong price for this. Repeat slowly, excuse me, I think I may have been charged the wrong price for this. You do not need to sound angry to be clear. In fact, calm language often makes communication easier. You can explain the problem, say what you expected, and then ask for help. For example, I ordered this in a medium, but I think this is a large. Could I exchange it? Or, I booked a room with 2 beds, but this room only has 1. Could you please check the reservation? Now I want you to imagine one of these situations yourself. You are in a restaurant, and the food you receive is not what you ordered. What could you say? Speak out loud. Maybe you said, excuse me, I think this might be the wrong order. I ordered the chicken, not the steak. Very good. Simple, clear, polite. Now imagine you are at a train station and you are not sure which platform you need. You could ask, excuse me, could you tell me which platform the train to Boston leaves from? Repeat, excuse me, could you tell me which platform the train to Boston leaves from? If you do not understand the answer, do not pretend that you do. Say, sorry, did you say platform 6? Or, could you repeat the platform number, please? This is what confident communication looks like, not knowing everything, but knowing how to keep the conversation going. Now let's combine several skills. Imagine you are traveling and someone gives you directions quickly. You understand the first part, but then you become confused. You can say, sorry, I got the first part, but could you repeat what I should do after the traffic light? That sentence is very useful because you explain exactly what you did and did not understand. Say it slowly. Sorry, I got the first part, but could you repeat what I should do after the traffic light? When you communicate this way, you stop seeing confusion as something embarrassing. Instead, it becomes something you can manage with language. And this is one of the most important changes you can make as an English learner. And stop expecting every conversation to be perfect. Real conversations include pauses, misunderstandings, forgotten words, corrections, changes of topic, and moments when people need to explain things again. Your goal is not to remove every difficult moment. Your goal is to become comfortable moving through those moments. So when you forget a word, describe it. When you need time, say, let me think. When you disagree, say, I see your point, but when you do not understand, ask the person to repeat or explain. When your plans change, suggest another option. And when you make a mistake, correct it if necessary, and continue. That is how confidence grows. Not because everything goes perfectly, but because you begin to trust yourself to handle the conversation even when it does not. Now let's practice another skill that makes a huge difference in real conversations: asking better follow-up questions. Many learners can answer a question, but after answering, they do not know what to say next. The conversation becomes quiet, and that silence can make them feel nervous. But you do not need to carry the whole conversation by yourself. One of the easiest ways to keep speaking naturally is to become curious about the other person. Imagine someone tells you, I went hiking last weekend. You could simply say, that's nice. But the conversation might stop there. Instead, you can ask, where did you go? Who did you go with? Was it difficult? Or, do you go hiking often? These are simple questions, but they give the other person something to talk about. Listen to this short conversation. Someone says, I went hiking last weekend. You respond, really? Where did you go? They say, we went to a place about an hour outside the city. You ask, was it your first time there? They answer, yes, and the views were amazing. You say, that sounds great. Would you go there again? Notice how naturally the conversation continues, and none of the questions are difficult. Now I want you to practice. Imagine I say, I tried a new restaurant yesterday. Ask me one follow-up question. Maybe you asked, what kind of food did they serve? Did you like it? Or, who did you go with? All of those work. Now imagine I say, I'm taking a few days off next month. Ask a question. You might say, are you going anywhere? Or, what are you planning to do? Excellent. Follow-up questions are powerful because they take pressure away from you. You do not have to produce a long speech every time you speak. Sometimes, your job is simply to show interest and help the other person continue. Another useful habit is to return the question. If someone asks, what do you usually do on weekends? You can answer, I usually spend some time with my family and relax at home. What about you? That last phrase, what about you, is one of the simplest tools for keeping a conversation balanced. Repeat, what about you? You can also say, how about you? Or, and you, depending on the situation. For example, I usually start work around 9. How about you? Vor, I've never been to Canada. What about you? Or, I prefer tea in the morning. And you? Now answer this question. What do you usually do in the evening? Speak naturally. Now add, what about you? Say your complete answer again. Very good. Let's move into conversations at work, because this is an area where many intermediate learners want to sound more confident. Workplace English does not always require complicated business vocabulary. Often, you need simple language for asking questions, giving updates, requesting clarification, and discussing problems. Imagine your manager asks, how is the report coming along? You could say, it's going well. I've finished most of it, and I should have the final version ready by tomorrow afternoon. Repeat slowly. It's going well. I've finished most of it, and I should have the final version ready by tomorrow afternoon. Maybe you are having a problem. You can say, I've made good progress, but I'm still waiting for some information from the sales team. This sounds much more useful than simply saying, it's not finished. Say it with me. I've made good progress, but I'm still waiting for some information from the sales team. Now imagine you need more time. You might say, would it be possible to have until Friday to finish this? Repeat. Would it be possible to have until Friday to finish this? Or, I may need a little more time. Would tomorrow morning work? These expressions are polite, direct, and useful in professional situations. Now let's practice. Imagine your coworker asks, have you finished the presentation? You have completed about 80% of it. Answer naturally. You might say, almost. I've finished most of the slides, but I still need to check a few details. Good. Now your manager asks, can you send it to me this afternoon? You think you can finish it, but you need another hour. Respond. You could say, yes, I should be able to send it later this afternoon. I just need about another hour to finish it. Excellent. Notice how useful the expression, I should be able to, can be. It shows that you expect something to be possible without making the sentence sound too strong. I should be able to finish it today. I should be able to join the meeting. I should be able to help you later. Repeat those sentences aloud. Another important workplace skill is asking for clarification without feeling embarrassed. Imagine someone says, "Could you update the figures and send the revised version to the team before lunch?" You are not sure which figures they mean. Instead of guessing, ask. You could say, "Sure, just to clarify, which figures would you like me to update?" Repeat, "Sure, just to clarify, which figures would you like me to update?" Or perhaps you understand the task, but not the deadline. You can say, "Just to confirm, you need this before lunch today, right?" Repeat, "Just to confirm, you need this before lunch today, right?" Expressions such as, "just to clarify," and "just to confirm," can make you sound calm and professional because they show that you care about understanding correctly. Now let's move away from work and into everyday social conversations. Sometimes the hardest questions are not practical questions, but open questions. Someone might ask, "What have you been up to lately?" This means, "What have you been doing recently?" A natural answer might be, "Nothing too exciting. I've mostly been working and trying to exercise more regularly." Repeat, "Nothing too exciting. I've mostly been working and trying to exercise more regularly." You could also say, "I've been pretty busy lately, but I'm trying to make more time for friends and family." Or maybe, "Actually, I've been learning how to cook a few new dishes." Now answer for yourself. What have you been up to lately? Take a moment. Begin with something simple. You could start with, "I've been pretty busy lately." Not much, really. "Actually, I've been," or "these days, I've been." Speak now. Good. Now imagine someone asks, "Do you have anything planned for the weekend?" You could say, "Nothing definite yet. I might meet some friends on Saturday, but I'll probably have a quiet Sunday." Repeat, "Nothing definite yet. I might meet some friends on Saturday, but I'll probably have a quiet Sunday." Notice the useful words, might and probably. They allow you to speak naturally about plans that are not completely certain. "I might go out tonight." "I'll probably stay home." "We might have dinner together." "I'll probably finish it tomorrow." Say each sentence aloud. Now I want to give you a short fluency challenge. I will ask you 3 everyday questions, and I want you to answer each one without translating every word in your mind. Your goal is not perfection. Your goal is movement. Start speaking, continue your idea, and finish naturally. First question. What is something you enjoy doing when you have free time? Speak. Second question. What is one place you would like to visit in the future, and why? Speak. Third question. What is something you have become better at during the last year? Speak. If your answers were simple, that is completely fine. A clear, simple answer spoken confidently is more useful than a complicated answer that never leaves your mind. And if you paused, searched for a word, or made a small mistake, continue anyway. That is part of the training. You are teaching your brain that when English becomes difficult, you do not have to stop. You can slow down, choose simpler words, correct yourself, and keep communicating. That ability is much closer to real fluency than speaking without a single mistake. Another powerful fluency skill is learning how to tell a short story without getting lost in too many details. In real conversations, people often ask questions like, "How was your day?" "What happened?" "How did the meeting go?" Or, "Why were you late?" If you try to explain every small detail, you may lose confidence. A better approach is to organize your answer around 3 simple ideas. What happened? how you felt, and what happened next. Imagine someone asks, "Why were you late this morning?" You could say, "There was a lot of traffic on the way to work, so the trip took much longer than usual. I was a little stressed, but luckily, I only arrived about 10 minutes late." Listen again. There was a lot of traffic on the way to work, so the trip took much longer than usual. I was a little stressed, but luckily, I only arrived about 10 minutes late. Notice that this is a complete story, but it is not complicated. We know what happened, we know how the speaker felt, and we know the result. Now say it with me slowly. There was a lot of traffic on the way to work, so the trip took much longer than usual. I was a little stressed, but luckily, I only arrived about 10 minutes late. Let's try another example. Imagine someone asks, "How was your dinner last night?" You could say, "It was really good. We tried a new restaurant near my apartment. The food was great, although the service was a little slow. After dinner, we walked around for a while and then went home." This kind of language is extremely useful because daily conversations are full of small stories. You do not always need dramatic events. You can talk about something that happened at work, something funny at the store, a problem during your commute, a meal you enjoyed, or a conversation you had with a friend. Now I want you to practice. Think about something you did yesterday. It could be something very ordinary. Maybe you went to work, cooked dinner, talked to someone, went shopping, exercised, or stayed home. Start with yesterday, then tell me what happened. Now add how you felt about it. And finally, tell me what happened afterward. Good. Do not worry if your story was only 3 or 4 sentences. That is enough. Fluency is not about making every answer long. It is about connecting your ideas clearly. Words such as so, because, but, although, then, after that, and, finally, are especially useful because they help you connect one thought to another. For example, I was tired, so I went home early. I stayed home because it was raining. I wanted to go out, but I had too much work. The restaurant was busy. Although we found a table quite quickly. We finished dinner, then we went for a walk. After that, we stopped for coffee. Finally, I went home and relaxed. Repeat a few of those aloud. I was tired, so I went home early. I wanted to go out, but I had too much work. After that, we stopped for coffee. Finally, I went home and relaxed. These connecting words may seem basic, but they are some of the most important tools in fluent speech. They help you continue instead of producing separate sentences that feel disconnected. Now let's practice expanding a very short answer. Imagine someone asks, "How was your weekend?" You say, "It was good." That is correct, but let's build it. It was good. I spent most of Saturday at home. Now add a reason. It was good. I spent most of Saturday at home because I needed some rest. Now add another event. On Sunday, I met a friend for lunch. And finally, give a personal reaction. It was a simple weekend, but I really enjoyed it. Listen to the full answer. It was good. I spent most of Saturday at home because I needed some rest. On Sunday, I met a friend for lunch. It was a simple weekend, but I really enjoyed it. This is a useful exercise you can practice every day. Begin with one simple sentence, then add a reason, an example, a detail, or a personal reaction. Let's practice together. Start with this sentence. I like my neighborhood. Now add a reason. Maybe, I like my neighborhood because it's quiet. Now add another detail. I like my neighborhood because it's quiet, and there are several nice cafes nearby. Now add a contrast. I like my neighborhood because it's quiet, and there are several nice cafes nearby, although it can get busy on weekends. Excellent! You took one very simple thought and turned it into natural conversational English. Now start with, I'm trying to improve my English. Add a reason, add something you are doing, and add your goal. Perhaps you said, I'm trying to improve my English because I want to communicate more confidently at work. So I've started listening and speaking every day. My goal is to feel comfortable having longer conversations. That is strong B1 to B2 speaking. Not because the vocabulary is extremely advanced, but because your ideas are connected clearly. Now let's talk about self-correction. Because many learners believe that making a mistake during conversation means they have failed. It does not. Native speakers correct themselves too. Confident speakers simply make the correction quickly and continue. Imagine you say, I went there on Friday. Sorry, I mean Saturday. That is completely natural. Or, sorry, she works in a hospital. Or, I've lived there since 3 years. Sorry, for 3 years. The important thing is what happens after the correction. You continue speaking. Repeat. Sorry, I mean Saturday. Again. Sorry, what I meant was, and, let me say that again. These expressions help when you want to repair what you just said. For example, the meeting is on Thursday. Sorry, let me say that again. It's on Friday. Or, I don't like it. Actually, that's not exactly what I mean. I like it, but I wouldn't choose it myself. Notice how useful that second example is. Sometimes you do not make a grammar mistake. You simply realize that your sentence does not express your meaning accurately. You can adjust it as you speak. That is a sign of communication skill, not failure. Now imagine you are describing your job and you say something incorrectly. Instead of becoming embarrassed, simply correct yourself and keep going. Practice this sentence. I've worked here since, for 5 years. Again, I've worked here for 5 years. Good. Now let's practice another situation that often makes learners nervous. Speaking on the phone. Phone conversations can feel harder because you cannot see the other person's face or body language, so you need clear language for checking information. Imagine you receive a call and the other person speaks too quickly. You can say, sorry, could you say that a little more slowly? Repeat. Sorry, could you say that a little more slowly? If you do not hear a name clearly, say, sorry, could you repeat your name? If you need to check a number, say, let me make sure I got that. Was that 547? If you need someone to wait, say, could you hold on for a moment, please? And if you need to find information, you can say, let me check that for you. One moment, please. These phrases can make phone conversations much less stressful because you no longer feel that you must understand everything the first time. Now imagine you are calling to make an appointment. You can begin, hi, I'd like to make an appointment for sometime next week. The person asks, what day works best for you? You say, Tuesday or Wednesday would be best, preferably in the afternoon. Then they offer a time. We have Wednesday at 3:30. You can say, 3:30 works for me. Thank you. Simple, practical, confident. Say the key sentence aloud. I'd like to make an appointment for sometime next week. Again, Tuesday or Wednesday would be best, preferably in the afternoon. And 3:30 works for me. Thank you. Now let's finish this practice with one longer speaking challenge. Imagine you have just met someone new, and they ask you about your life. I want you to speak for about 30 seconds using simple English. Talk about what you do, where you live, something you enjoy, and one thing you are working on improving. Do not write the answer first. Speak. Begin with, well, keep going. If you become stuck, use one of the tools we have practiced. Let me think. Actually, for me, I'd probably say continue and finish naturally. Good. Whether your answer was smooth or difficult, you just did something important. You practiced producing English without waiting for a perfect script in your mind. Every time you do that, your brain becomes a little faster at finding words, connecting ideas, and continuing after a pause. The goal is not to eliminate thinking. The goal is to reduce the amount of unnecessary thinking that happens between your idea and your voice. With enough active practice, English starts to feel less like something you have to construct carefully and more like something you can actually use. Now let's focus on something that can make your English sound much more natural, learning to speak in useful chunks instead of building every sentence one word at a time. When fluent speakers talk, they often use groups of words that naturally belong together. Expressions like, that sounds good, I'm not sure yet, it depends on the situation, as far as I know, I'm looking forward to it, and I'll let you know. These are not difficult expressions, but when you practice them as complete units, your brain can produce them much faster. For example, imagine your friend asks, "Are you coming to dinner on Friday?" You are not completely sure. Instead of creating a new sentence from the beginning, you can use a ready-made chunk. I'm not sure yet, but I'll let you know tomorrow. Listen again. I'm not sure yet, but I'll let you know tomorrow. Now repeat it slowly. I'm not sure yet, but I'll let you know tomorrow. Imagine your coworker says, "We may need to move the meeting to Thursday." You can respond, "That works for me." Repeat, "That works for me." Or maybe Thursday is difficult. Thursday might be difficult for me. Is Friday possible? Repeat, Thursday might be difficult for me. Is Friday possible? These expressions are useful because they reduce the amount of pressure on your brain. Instead of choosing every word separately, you already have a natural phrase ready to use. This is why I want you to notice useful combinations whenever you listen to English. Do not only ask, "What does this word mean?" Also ask, "What words usually come with it?" Think about the word decision. We often say, "Make a decision." We say, "I need to make a decision." It was a difficult decision. I haven't made a decision yet. Repeat that last sentence. I haven't made a decision yet. With the word mistake, we usually say, make a mistake. You can say, I made a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes. I realized I had made a mistake. These combinations help your English come out more naturally because you are learning language as people actually use it. Now let's practice a few everyday chunks. Listen first, then repeat. I'm running a little late. I'll be there in about 10 minutes. I'm on my way. I completely forgot about that. I haven't decided yet. That makes sense. I'm getting used to it. I'm looking forward to it. I'll think about it. I'll get back to you. Now let's use some of them in real situations. Imagine you are meeting a friend at a cafe, but your bus is delayed. You call your friend. What can you say? Sorry, I'm running a little late. I'll be there in about 10 minutes. Repeat the complete message. Sorry, I'm running a little late. I'll be there in about 10 minutes. Imagine someone asks you, "Do you like your new job?" You have only been there for a week. You might say, So far, yes. I'm still getting used to everything, but the people seem really nice. Repeat. I'm still getting used to everything, but the people seem really nice. The expression, get used to, is especially useful when something is becoming more normal or comfortable over time. Expression, get used to, is especially useful when something is becoming more normal or comfortable over time. Maybe you move to a new city. At first, everything feels unfamiliar. After a few months, you can say, I'm getting used to living here. Maybe your work schedule changes. You can say, I'm still getting used to waking up so early. Now think about something in your life that you are still getting used to. Complete this sentence aloud. I'm still getting used to. Good. Another very useful fluency skill is learning how to give reasons without making your answers unnecessarily complicated. If someone asks, why are you learning English? You could say, because I need it for work. That is fine, but at the B1 to B2 level, you can develop the answer a little more naturally. You might say, I'm learning English because I want to communicate more confidently at work, and I'd also like to travel more easily. Or, one of the main reasons I'm learning English is that I want more career opportunities. Repeat. One of the main reasons I'm learning English is that I want more career opportunities. Now answer the question for yourself. Why are you improving your English? Speak for at least 2 or 3 sentences. Try to include because, so, or one of the main reasons. Good. Now let's practice comparing things. Because comparisons appear constantly in daily conversations. You might compare cities, jobs, restaurants, phones, routines, ways of learning, or different experiences. Imagine someone asks, do you prefer working from home or working in an office? You could say, I prefer working from home because it's more flexible, but I think working in an office is better for communicating with coworkers. Notice that you can express a preference without saying that one choice is perfect. Real opinions often include advantages and disadvantages. Another example, driving is more convenient, but public transportation is usually cheaper. Repeat, driving is more convenient, but public transportation is usually cheaper. Or, this restaurant is a little more expensive than the one we usually go to, but the food is better. Repeat, this restaurant is a little more expensive, but the food is better. Now I'll give you 2 choices, and you compare them aloud. Cooking at home or eating at restaurants. Speak. You might say, cooking at home is usually cheaper and healthier, but eating at restaurants is more convenient. Now compare studying English alone and studying with other people. Perhaps you said, studying alone helps me concentrate, but practicing with other people gives me more speaking experience. Very good. Now let's make your answers even more flexible by practicing uncertainty. In real conversations, you will not always know the answer. You do not have to pretend that you are certain. You can say, I'm not completely sure. I think so. Probably. As far as I know. I'm not sure, but I think. Imagine someone asks, does this store close at 9? You do not know exactly. You can say, I'm not completely sure, but I think it closes at 9. Repeat. I'm not completely sure, but I think it closes at 9. Someone asks, is Daniel coming tonight? You could say, I think so, but I haven't spoken to him today. Someone asks, is there a bus that goes directly to the airport? You might answer, as far as I know, yes, but you may want to check the schedule. That sounds confident because you are being clear about what you know and what you do not know. Now imagine someone asks you a question and you really have no idea. It is perfectly natural to say, "I'm not sure, actually." You can then continue. "I'd have to check." Repeat. "I'm not sure, actually. I'd have to check." Confidence does not mean always having an answer. It means being comfortable communicating the truth. Now let's practice describing a problem and asking for a solution. Imagine your internet suddenly stops working and you need it for an important meeting. You call customer service. You could say, "Hi, my internet connection stopped working about 20 minutes ago, and I've already tried restarting the router. Could you help me figure out what's wrong?" Notice how clear that message is. You explain the problem, say what you have already tried, and ask for help. Repeat the key sentence. "My internet connection stopped working, and I've already tried restarting the router." Now imagine your phone is not charging. You take it to a repair store and say, "My phone isn't charging properly. I've tried 2 different chargers, but neither one seems to work." Repeat. "I've tried 2 different chargers, but neither one seems to work." The employee asks, "When did the problem start?" You say, "I first noticed it yesterday evening." The employee asks, "Has this happened before?" You answer, "No, this is the first time." These small exchanges are exactly the kind of English that becomes easier when you practice complete situations rather than isolated sentences. Now I want you to do a speaking exercise. Imagine that something in your home is not working. Maybe your air conditioner, washing machine, computer, or another device. Explain the problem in English. Start with, "There seems to be a problem with." Now explain what is happening. Then say what you have already tried. Finally, ask for help. Excellent. Let's move into a situation that many learners find challenging. Joining a conversation that is already happening. Perhaps several coworkers or friends are talking, and you have something to say. You do not need to wait for the perfect moment. You can enter naturally with an expression like, "Actually, I had a similar experience. That reminds me of something. I was just thinking the same thing." Or, "Can I add something?" Imagine people are discussing travel problems. Someone says, "My flight was delayed for 6 hours last year." You could enter the conversation by saying, "That reminds me of something. I had a similar experience when I traveled last summer." Repeat. "That reminds me of something. I had a similar experience." Or perhaps people are discussing a new restaurant. You can say, "Actually, I went there last week. The food was really good." These short openings help you become part of the conversation instead of waiting silently for someone to ask you a direct question. Now practice. "Can I add something?" Again. "Actually, I had a similar experience." And, "That reminds me of something." Now imagine you are in a group conversation about learning languages, and someone says, "Speaking is the hardest part for me." Join the conversation aloud. You might say, "I know what you mean. Speaking used to be the hardest part for me too, especially when I had to answer quickly." That is a natural way to connect your experience with someone else's. Another skill you need is changing the topic smoothly. Conversations do not stay on one subject forever. You can say, "By the way," when you want to introduce something new. For example, "By the way, are you still planning to travel next month?" Or, "Speaking of work, how did your interview go?" Repeat, "By the way," and "Speaking of work." These expressions make topic changes feel more natural. Now let's practice with a short situation. You are talking with a friend about your weekend, and suddenly, you remember that you need to ask about their new job. You could say, "By the way, how's the new job going?" Repeat, "By the way, how's the new job going?" Simple, natural, useful. Now I want you to complete a longer fluency exercise. Imagine you meet an old friend you have not seen for several months. Start the conversation by greeting them. Ask what they have been doing. React to one piece of information. Talk briefly about your own life and ask another follow-up question. Begin now. Keep the conversation moving. If you need thinking time, use "let me think" or "actually." If you want to change the topic, use "by the way." And finish naturally. Very good. Every exercise like this is teaching you something more important than one individual sentence. You are learning how to manage a conversation. You are learning how to enter it, continue it, repair it, expand it, and change direction when necessary. That is why you should not measure fluency only by how many words you know. Ask yourself something more practical. Can I explain what I mean? Can I respond when someone surprises me with a question? Can I ask for clarification? Can I keep talking if I forget a word? Can I tell a short story? Can I disagree politely? Can I recover after a mistake? When your answer to more of these questions becomes yes, your real-life fluency is growing. And remember that growth often happens quietly. At first, you may still pause. You may still translate sometimes. You may still make mistakes. But after weeks and months of active speaking practice, you begin noticing small changes. A sentence comes to you faster. You answer a question without translating. You use an expression automatically. You continue talking after making a mistake. And one day you realize that something which once felt difficult now feels normal. That is progress. And that is how real fluency is built, not through one perfect day of study, but through hundreds of small moments when you choose to use your English instead of only thinking about it. Before we finish the main lesson, I want to bring everything together with one final fluency practice. At this point, you have practiced giving longer answers, asking follow-up questions, expressing opinions, handling misunderstandings, describing problems, telling short stories, correcting yourself, and continuing even when you do not know the perfect word. Now the goal is to use these skills together, because that is what happens in a real conversation. Imagine you are meeting someone new at a work event or social gathering. The person asks, "So, how has your week been?" Instead of answering with only, "Good," give a little more information. You might say, "It's been pretty busy, but overall, it's been good. I've had a lot of work to finish, so I'm looking forward to having a quieter weekend." Repeat slowly. This has been pretty busy, but overall, it's been good. I've had a lot of work to finish, so I'm looking forward to having a quieter weekend. Now the other person says, "I know what you mean. My week has been really busy too." This is your opportunity to react and continue. You can say, "Really? What have you been working on?" The person explains, "We're preparing for a big presentation next week." You can respond, "That sounds stressful, but hopefully everything goes well. Do you have much left to prepare?" Notice what you are doing. You are not waiting for perfect English. You are listening to the meaning, reacting naturally, and asking something connected to what you just heard. Now imagine the person asks you, "What do you normally do when work gets stressful?" Take a moment and answer out loud. Maybe you said, "Usually, I try to take a short break and clear my head. Even a 10-minute walk can help me feel better." That is a natural answer. Now expand it with one more detail. Perhaps, "I also try not to bring too much work home with me, although that's not always possible." Excellent. Now I want you to practice responding to unexpected questions, because this is where confidence is really tested. When you prepare for a conversation, you usually know what you want to say. But in real life, someone can ask you something you did not expect. Here is your first question. If you could change one thing about your daily routine, what would it be? Do not search for a perfect answer. Start with a thinking phrase if you need one. You might say, "That's a good question. I'd probably start exercising in the morning because I often feel too tired in the evening." Very good. Here is another question. What is something you used to find difficult, but now find easier? Answer aloud. Maybe you said, "Speaking English in front of other people used to make me very nervous, but it's becoming easier because I practice more often." Excellent. Now, one more. What is one habit that helps you stay productive? Speak. There is no single correct answer. The purpose of this exercise is to train your ability to organize ideas while speaking. Now, let's make it a little more challenging. I want you to answer the next question using 3 parts. Give your opinion, explain your reason, and give an example. Here is the question. Do you think people should spend less time on social media? Begin with your opinion. Now explain why, and give one example. Your answer might sound like this. I think many people could benefit from spending less time on social media because it can become a distraction without us noticing. For example, sometimes I open my phone for one message and suddenly realize I've spent 20 minutes looking at things I didn't really need to see. That is a strong conversational answer because it has a clear structure, but it still sounds natural. Now use the same structure with this question. Is traveling one of the best ways to learn about other cultures? Give your opinion. Explain your reason. Give an example. Good. When you practice speaking at home, use this simple method often. Ask yourself a question, give an opinion, explain why, and add one example. This can train you to speak for 30 seconds, then 1 minute, and eventually much longer without feeling lost. Another exercise is to describe something around you without preparing. Choose an object, a place, or something that happened today. Speak about it for 30 seconds. If you forget a word, describe it. If you make a mistake, correct yourself and continue. If you need time, say, "Let me think." Try it now. Choose something simple, maybe your morning, your room, your job, your favorite meal, or your plans for tomorrow. Start speaking. Keep going. Add one reason, example, or detail. And finish your thought. Good. This kind of spontaneous practice is one of the most useful things you can do because it teaches your brain to create English in real time. You do not need another person every time you practice. You can speak to yourself while getting ready. Describe what you are doing while cooking. Summarize your day before going to bed. Explain your opinion about something you watched. Or imagine a conversation that you might have tomorrow. For example, while getting ready in the morning, you might say, "I have a fairly busy day today. I need to finish a few things before lunch, and then I have a meeting in the afternoon. If I have enough time, I'd also like to go for a walk after work." That may seem simple, but you are training sentence formation, vocabulary recall, pronunciation, and confidence at the same time. You can also practice what I call the second answer method. Ask yourself a question, answer it once, and then answer it again in a slightly better way. For example, what did you do yesterday? First answer, I worked and stayed home. Second answer, I worked most of the day, and afterward I stayed home because I was pretty tired. Another example, do you like where you live? First answer, yes, I do. Second answer, yes, I really like it because it's convenient and fairly quiet. Although traffic can be a problem during busy hours, this exercise teaches you how to expand your speech without making it complicated. Now let's do 3 together. Question 1. What do you usually eat for breakfast? Give your first simple answer. Now improve it with 1 or 2 details. Question 2. How do you normally spend your weekends? Give your simple answer. Now make it more conversational. Question 3. What are you hoping to achieve this year? Give your first answer. Now add a reason. Detail or example. Very good. There is one final idea I want you to remember from this masterclass. Fluency is not speed. Some learners believe they need to speak extremely quickly to sound fluent. But speaking quickly while feeling confused is not the goal. Clear English, spoken at a comfortable pace, is much more useful. Allow yourself to pause naturally, instead of, maybe, I don't. Try, let me think. I'd probably say, instead of panicking because you forgot a word, say, I can't remember the exact word, but it's something you use for. Instead of giving up when someone speaks too quickly, say, sorry, could you say that again a little more slowly? Those are not signs of weak English. Those are communication strategies. And they allow you to stay in control of the conversation. Your goal from now on should be simple. Use English actively every day. Even 10 focused minutes can be valuable if you are actually speaking. Ask yourself questions. Answer them aloud. Repeat useful phrases. Describe your day. Retell a short story. Practice a conversation. And challenge yourself to continue speaking when your first instinct is to stop. Some days will feel easy, and some days will feel difficult. Sometimes words will come quickly, and sometimes they will not. That is normal. Do not judge your progress by one conversation or one difficult day. Instead, notice what becomes easier over time. Maybe you stop translating one common phrase. Maybe you answer a question faster. Maybe you recover from a mistake without becoming nervous. Maybe you finally use an expression naturally that you practice several times. Maybe you speak for 1 minute without stopping. Those small changes matter. Every time you practice speaking, you are building a stronger connection between what you understand and what you can actually say. And the more often you use that connection, the more natural it becomes. So when your next real conversation comes, do not wait for the perfect sentence. Listen, understand the main idea, take a moment if you need it, and respond with the English you have. Keep your sentences clear. Add a little detail. Ask questions. React naturally. Explain what you mean, and keep going. That is the skill you are building, the ability to stay in the conversation. And little by little, conversation by conversation, your English can become faster, calmer, clearer, and much more confident. Thank you so much for staying with me until the end of this English Fluency Masterclass. I truly hope today's practice has helped you feel more comfortable, more prepared, and more confident about using English in real-life conversations. Remember, you do not need perfect grammar, perfect pronunciation, or perfect vocabulary before you start speaking. What you need is consistent practice, a willingness to make mistakes, and the confidence to keep going when a conversation becomes difficult. Try to use the expressions and speaking strategies from today's lesson in your everyday life. Answer questions out loud, describe your day, express your opinions, ask follow-up questions, tell short stories, and practice speaking even when you are alone. The more often you actively use English, the more naturally your words will begin to come. And whenever you feel that your progress is too slow, remember how fluency really develops. One sentence, one conversation, and one small improvement at a time. If you enjoyed practicing with me today, subscribe to the channel and continue learning with us. And in the comments, tell me one thing you are going to do this week to improve your English speaking. Write your answer in English, even if it is only one simple sentence. Keep listening, keep practicing, and most importantly, keep speaking. Your English does not have to be perfect to be powerful. It simply needs to be used. I'm Evelyn, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Until then, keep practicing, keep believing in your progress, and keep building your confident English voice, one conversation at a time.